Wanderlei's been in the sport forever. He's the longest reigning champion prior to UFC history. When I first started fighting, I was watching Wanderlei, and in some ways, attempting to emulate some of the stuff that he did. I mean, the guy's been in dozens of legendary wars. I mean, he's you can't go to a 7-Eleven without seeing him right next to those little Zions thing. He's everywhere. He's huge. So, it's a real honor for me to be able to fight him. In particular, because I really enjoy watching him fight. I really enjoy his style. I mean, one of my feelings is, we're not just athletes, we're entertainers. And when the fans pay for a seat or pay for a pay-per-view, you want to give them a show. Wanderlei always brings a show, and I'd like to think that that's the same story with me. So besides the fact I think we're a shoo-in for the fight of the night, I think it's going to be win, lose or draw. It's going to be a great show.
Looking at the event itself, I mean, do you have any concern coming off knockouts, the fact that now you're going to be in a toe-to-toe fight? Does that, they say once you're chipping one of your biggest assets, ever, and now is that?
I don't mean to cut you off, sorry, but this is my 19th fight in the UFC. I've won some, I've lost some, I'm past that, I'm not, I learned a lot from that, as always, win, lose, or draw. I go back and I look at a fight and I go, what did I do right? What worked well? What didn't work? Where did I really fuck up? I mean, screw up, I'm sorry, and that's the case with the O'Brien Stan fight. Water under the bridge, My opponent now is Wanderlei Silva. I had a great year before that. I'm not the kind of guy that goes, you fall off the horse. What do? You get back on, right? So, what better way than to fight Wanderlei?
Well, last question then. If you look back at that fight, how do you evaluate what mistake did you make? Because that was kind of your type of fight. You would think.
You would think so, yeah. Well, I don't want to take anything away from Brian Stan. He's an amazing athlete. He's done a ton for the country and the sport. I ate a bunch of candy, dude. I'm not lying. I didn't eat sugar for like 2 months, and then after I made weight, I went and I bought gummy bears, jawbreakers, ice cream, and I ate that. And my body hadn't had sugar, so I was backstage. I was puking. I was shitting and puking between my legs when I was on deck for that fight. That's not a lie, that's the truth. And I'll be honest with you, Brian Stan fought an amazing fight, but hindsight's 20/20. No gummy bears for me this fight.
On the surface, this is a fight that as soon as the referee steps out of the way, you two guys are going to be gunslinging. But realistically, this fight could hit the ground. Both you guys are very talented on the ground. How do you break down the ground fight versus a guy like Wanderlei Silva?
Well, Wanderlei Silva is kind of in the same shoes as me. See, Wanderlei Silva is good on the ground, but you can't showcase your ground skills if you hit somebody and then they fall down. They don't get up. So a lot of people kind of, I believe, underestimate his skills on the ground. He's a black belt. I started wrestling and grappling before I ever started striking, and I continue to work at it every single day. And I think that all my coaches always say, Chris, why don't you go out there and take that guy down? You're amazing on the ground, but, for some reason, it doesn't seem to happen that way once they hit me in the face. But yeah, once it goes to the ground, honestly, I'd love for this fight to go to the ground. I want to see where he's at. I'd like to punch an elbow on the ground, punch an elbow on our feet. I'll take it wherever it needs to go. I'll put him on his back if I got to.
Any other questions, Chris?
Chris, how different of a fighter are you after 19 fights? What have you done recently to kind of bring your game up and continue?
Well, they say you get older, you get wiser. I think the truth is you get lazier, right? And I've learned the stuff that, in the end, dieting, right, it helps me cut weight better. And if I eat a bunch of candy, I'm probably going to get sick, and I'm not going to fight well, and then I'm going to get hurt because I'm going to get hit. And I don't want that because I'm lazy. So, truthfully as a fighter, I've changed a lot. I used to just be wide open, and I think that I probably could have beat 90–95% of guys being just wide open. Then, I won 5 straight in the UFC, and I ran into Anderson Silva, and I realized, guess what? I'm not going to beat everybody being wide open. I had to go back and reevaluate things and change. And that's also when I changed my view of what it is to be a fighter. Now I don't view myself as a fighter as much as a martial artist. And I believe that a martial artist is always striving to grow, always striving to progress. You know, if you're not growing, you're dying. You know, and that's kind of what I see in this sport. And I've seen this so many times. And guys that, you know, you look at some of the guys that were champs 5, 6 years ago, they're right in the middle of the pack nowadays. It's because they did not change, grow, and evolve. This sport has evolved. In the last 5 years, I would say this sport has evolved what it takes basketball and football 20 or 30 years to do. The level of the game, the acceleration, how much it's changed. And, you know, I continue, you know, my coach Bert Richardson, he's coming in every day saying, oh, this is what they did in Abu Dhabi. This is what Pacquiao did in his fight. This is what the best guys, the best level are working. And, you know, that's what I've really changed. I'm really a student of the game now.
Chris, how many more fights would you like to have? What's your, I guess, your long-term goals other than the title?
Well, I mean, truthfully, my passion is coaching. I have a gym in Hawaii, and you know, I've got a great team. I've got amateurs and pros that fight. Not to mention, you know, tons of just regular members. You know, anywhere from the ages of 12 years old to 60 that come in my gym. And you know, I don't really see myself doing anything else but just coaching and training. Even when I'm not competing, you know, I like to inspire. You know, I like to see the kids, the high school kids that come into my gym lose 40, 50, 60 pounds, you know, and all of a sudden they get some self-respect, they get a girlfriend, now they don't have to act out because guess what? They're not trying to prove themselves to themselves because they're confident now, you know? So I've seen the sport change, one, me, myself, and two, so many other people that have walked through the doors of gyms that I've trained at that I can't see myself having the desire to really do anything else. I mean, as far as benefiting people on an individual level, MMA is amazing.
So in terms of age or number of fights, as long as you can produce, you'll do it?
Well, as far as fighting now, when I first started fighting, you know, I gotta say, fighters are like strippers, they're not paying their way through college. What I mean by that, maybe daddy ripped up the teddy bear, but there's a real reason there, you know it. You know, every fighter, no normal person goes, hey, I want to get in the cage in front of my family and friends and have somebody potentially beat the crap out of me. There's a reason they're doing that, and that was the case with me when I was on the show. That was the case with me when I first started in the sport. But, you know, it's not to prove to everybody else they're tough, it's to prove to themselves they're tough. That's why everybody originally starts in this sport. Now me, my motivations have changed now. My goal is I want people to go, well, if Chris can do it, I gotta be able to do it, you know? I want to be able to inspire and motivate. So that's really my goal now.
Chris, you kind of talked about the evolution of the sport. I'm wondering, do you see you and Wanderlei as almost kind of a dying breed that does care more about entertainment than necessarily winning?
Yes, I do. That's why I want to fight so much, you know? It's, you know, I want to see guys fight to win, not fight not to lose. You know, I would rather have 5 great fights than have had the title for 5 fights that sucked, but I won the belt at the end of every one.
You had referenced Pacquiao and learning from different things, Abu Dhabi, Pacquiao. Pacquiao referenced in his last fight that he idolizes Bruce Lee and tried to emulate Bruce Lee. So do you think in the combat sports there's sort of this sort of esprit de corps where everybody's kind of in a circle?
Well, I think probably on the level of when you're looking at the evolvers of the sport, people that change the sport, people that challenge the direction of the sport, you know. You know, obviously Bruce Lee was an innovator. You know, obviously, you know, he was doing different things. Pacquiao, I think the way he fought, I mean, I think he's bet home. He's an innovator. He's doing different things, you know. He's changing the game. And, you know, I think that it doesn't matter. But, yeah, in any combat sport, you know, what really should interest us are the people that are continuing to progress, are the people that are continuing to push the envelope, to push the limits, and to change and do different things.
And last question. When Wanderlei fought Chuck, there was all this talk of, you know, the shootout, similar to what your fight's going to be. And Chuck added in, you know, every round a takedown. And that fight ended up not being a knockout, but, you know, Chuck won the fight. Could you see yourself just, you know, changing the fight up just for the fact of winning decision, as opposed to saying, screw it, I want to go for the knockout?
Yeah, I mean, you know, like I said, I want an exciting fight, but that doesn't mean I have to go balls to the wall. You know, like I said, I learned that with Anderson Silva. I can't swing wide open. I still got to cover every once in a while, you know? And bottom line is, this is not boxing. This is mixed martial arts. If I got to put him on his back, I'll put him on his back. If he takes me down, I'm going to work my bottom game. We saw that with Akiyama. You know, I'm going to fight wherever we got to fight at.